Lock 1. The Hook. The Appalachian air, thick with the scent of rain and wet earth, was shattered by Ethan's raw, desperate shouts. Below him, on the treacherous, slick edge of a freshly carved ravine, his daughter Lily clung to a single, straining root. She was a small splash of color against a world of brown mud and gray sky, her tiny fingers locked in a death grip. Every time she tried to adjust her hold, a fresh cascade of soil and loose rock broke away, tumbling silently into the deep, misty void below. The chasm seemed to breathe, patiently waiting to swallow her whole, and Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure, undiluted terror. He was a park ranger, a man who knew this mountain intimately, yet he was utterly powerless. A colossal shadow suddenly fell over him, eclipsing the weak afternoon light and chilling him to the bone. He looked up, his breath catching in his throat. It was Kale, the sanctuary's great silverback gorilla, a creature of myth and quiet power Ethan had only ever observed from a safe distance. The gorilla stood at the tree line, a living monument of muscle and fur, his presence so immense it felt like the mountain itself had risen to watch. But it was his eyes that stole Ethan's voice. From those deep, intelligent pools, dark tears carved paths through the coarse hair on his face. They were not tears of anger or aggression, but of a profound, heartbreaking sorrow that Ethan couldn't begin to comprehend. The ground beneath Lily shuddered again, a low groan coming from the very earth. A small, terrified whimper escaped her lips as the root she was clutching began to tear away from the cliff face with a sickening, ripping sound. Her knuckles, already bone-white from the strain, seemed to glow against the darkening mud. Ethan lunged forward, his boots sinking into the unstable ground, but it gave way instantly, sending him sliding backward, away from his daughter. A wave of hot, suffocating frustration washed over him. He was supposed to be her protector, the one who kept the monsters at bay, but here, the monster was gravity itself, and he could do nothing but watch it win. Kale remained perfectly still, his massive form a stark contrast to Ethan's frantic helplessness. The gorilla's gaze was fixed on the small, trembling girl, and the tears continued their silent descent. It was a scene that defied all logic. A wild animal weeping at the sight of a human child's peril. The giant's sorrow was a palpable force, a quiet, mournful energy that seemed to settle over the chaotic scene. It felt ancient and deeply intelligent, but to understand the impossible bond that brought them to this precipice, a man, his daughter, and a grieving gorilla, we must go back to the beginning. Nines Doms Dom Block 2, Context, Nines Doms. But to understand what was about to happen, we must go back 6 months. For years, Ethan had observed Kale with the detached respect of a scientist, documenting the silverback's solitary patterns for the sanctuary's records. He saw a magnificent, powerful animal, a symbol of the wild he was sworn to protect. His daughter, Lily, however, saw something entirely different. Raised with the forest as her backyard, she didn't see a beast. She saw the silent king. She would often gather a small, colorful bouquet of wildflowers and leave them on a flat rock at the very edge of Kale's territory. From the dense cover of the trees, Kale would watch her approach, his ancient mind filled not with suspicion, but a deep, growing curiosity for the small, gentle creature who brought color to the border of his world. Their silent conversations grew from there, woven from threads of mutual respect and innocent fascination. One afternoon, Lily sat with her sketchbook, trying to capture the sheer size of Kale's hand from memory. As she drew, she noticed a huge, dark shape settling just inside the tree line, partially obscured but unmistakably him. He wasn't posturing or displaying aggression. He was simply sitting, watching her with an unnerving stillness. Ethan, observing from a safe distance, felt a prickle of unease mixed with wonder. He could see the gorilla's gaze soften, his immense power held in a state of quiet contemplation. Kale felt a strange resonance with the girl's focused calm, a peaceful energy that was a rare gift in his solitary life. It was a connection that transcended species, built in shared silence. The true depth of their bond was revealed during an unexpected summer thunderstorm. As the sky cracked open, and while other animals scattered, Lily found herself caught near Kale's territory. Frightened by a loud clap of thunder, she huddled under a rocky overhang instead of running back to the cabin. Ethan, rushing to find her, stopped dead in his tracks. Cale had moved to the edge of his enclosure, standing exposed to the rain, a massive, reassuring silhouette against the flashing sky. He felt the girl's sharp spike of fear and responded not with animal instinct, but with a profound, protective stillness. He was a mountain, unmovable and unafraid, and his presence seemed to calm the very air around her. From that day forward, Ethan understood that what Lily and Cale shared was something sacred. He allowed her quiet visits, always under his supervision, recognizing the unique lesson in empathy unfolding before his eyes. For Lily, Cale was her giant, a friend who spoke without words. For Cale, the little girl with the bright jacket and wildflower offerings became a predictable, gentle light in his existence. Their bond was a fragile bridge built between the world of man and the heart of the wild. But what no one knew was that this bridge was about to be tested by the full, unforgiving force of nature itself. Nomad, Block 3, Escalation of the Crisis. The present slammed back with the force of a physical blow, dragging Ethan from the memory of peaceful afternoons. The drizzle had returned, a cold, persistent mist that turned the mud into a greasy, unforgiving slurry. The tearing sound from the root was now a constant, agonizing groan, like the dying gasp of the mountain itself. Lily's small jacket was caked in mud, her bright color fading into the grim landscape. Every panicked beat of Ethan's heart echoed in the suffocating silence between the sounds of collapse. He could feel the ground vibrating beneath his feet, a terrifying reminder that the entire cliffside was a fragile, temporary shelf hanging over nothingness. His training, his knowledge, his strength, all were rendered utterly useless against the simple, brutal physics of the situation. He was just a father, watching his world about to end. Lily's strength was visibly draining away, her movements becoming slow and agonizingly deliberate. The initial terror in her eyes had been replaced by a deep, weary exhaustion that broke Ethan's heart into a million pieces. Her small body trembled violently, a combination of cold and the immense strain of holding her own weight. She tried to shift her feet to find a new hold, but her legs were numb and unresponsive, dangling uselessly against the muddy wall. Inside her mind, the roaring fear was a distant hum. Her primary focus was on the burning ache in her arms and the image of her father's desperate face. She didn't want him to be sad. This single, innocent thought gave her the will to hang on for one more second, and then another. Frustration burned like acid in Ethan's throat. He scrambled sideways, trying to find a more stable approach, a different angle from which he could reach her. But the land was a traitor. Every step he took dislodged another shower of rocks and soil, which rained down perilously close to Lily's head, forcing her to flinch. He was making it worse. The realization hit him with the force of a punch to the gut. His attempts to save her were actively endangering her. He was trapped in a nightmare of his own impotence, forced to remain still while the person he loved most in the world slipped away. He could only watch, his hands clenched into useless fists, his mind screaming in a silent void of pure, unadulterated horror. From his vantage point, Cale felt the world's decay with an ancient, primal sensitivity. The low groans of the earth traveled up through the soles of his feet, and the girl's weakening scent was a sharp note of distress in the damp air. His profound sorrow was now sharpening into something else, a deep, resonant urgency that vibrated in his massive chest. He could feel the man's frantic, desperate energy, a chaotic storm of fear that was achieving nothing. He could also sense the little one's life force dimming, her small, steady light beginning to flicker against the overwhelming darkness. In his world, the strong protected the vulnerable. It was a law older than the trees, and the violation of that law was an unbearable dissonance that he could no longer just witness. Suddenly, a larger section of the cliff face gave a sickening lurch. A network of cracks spiderwebbed across the surface just above Lily's head, and the root she clung to tore another few inches from its mooring. It now dangled by a thread of woody fibers, swinging precariously with her slight weight. A steady trickle of cold water began to run down the cliff, flowing directly over her hands, making her already tenuous grip impossibly slick. The chasm below seemed to exude a palpable cold, its misty depths swirling as if in anticipation. The moment was stretched thin, a fragile membrane of time about to rupture. The finality of the scene was absolute. It was no longer a question of if, but of when. Ethan let out a choked, involuntary sound, a mix between a sob and a prayer. He saw Lily's eyes flutter shut for a half-second, a terrifying sign of her surrendering to the exhaustion. Across the clearing, Cale's entire posture shifted. The passive, grieving observer was gone, replaced by a being of immense, coiled power. His brow furrowed, and a deep intelligence burned in his eyes as he assessed the geometry of the disaster with a focus that was both chilling and awe-inspiring. The time for watching was over. The delicate balance had tipped, and the weight of impending tragedy was too great to bear. Time was running out. Something had to be done, or all would be lost. It was not the roar of the wind or the groaning of the earth that finally broke the spell of despair. It was the smallest of sounds. A faint, exhausted whimper that escaped Lily's lips, a sound so fragile it was nearly swallowed by the vast, indifferent wilderness. But for Cale, it was a thunderclap. The sound pierced through his grief, igniting a fire in the depths of his ancient consciousness. A deep, guttural rumble vibrated from his chest, a sound not of aggression, but of profound, empathetic anguish that had reached its breaking point. He rose slowly to his full, colossal height, his muscles coiling with a purpose that was terrifying in its intensity. For a heart-stopping second, Ethan flinched, bracing for a charge, but Cale's eyes, burning with an almost human intelligence, were not on him. They were locked on the child. Then, the giant moved. It was not the explosive, territorial charge Ethan had been trained to expect, but something far more frightening in its deliberation. Each step was a carefully placed tremor, a conscious decision to advance toward the unstable precipice. His massive knuckles brushed the wet ferns as he walked, his gaze never leaving the small, fading splash of color that was Lily. Ethan's own fear was a cold, paralyzing weight in his chest. His mind screamed at him to do something, to shout, to distract the beast, but his body was frozen in a state of primal awe and terror. He was witnessing a violation of every known rule of the wild. Cale was not moving to attack the source of the commotion. He was moving directly toward the heart of the danger itself, his entire being a declaration of intent. Inside Cale's mind, a war was being fought. The instinct for self-preservation, honed over millennia, screamed at him to retreat from the treacherous, crumbling earth. He could feel the instability of the ground, a deep, unsettling vibration that promised a swift and final plunge into the abyss. But another, more powerful force pushed back, a mosaic of memories. He saw the small girl leaving her colorful flowers, her quiet, focused energy as she sketched, her trusting presence that asked for nothing. This gentle creature, this small, predictable light in his solitary world, was being extinguished. The ancient law of his kind, the sacred duty to protect the vulnerable members of the troop, was now being extended across the unfathomable gulf between species. It was a choice, made in a silent, conscious moment, to honor a bond that defied all logic. Reaching the very edge of the solid ground, where the mud turned to a treacherous, collapsing slope, Cale stopped. He did not rush forward. Instead, with a display of breathtaking control and intelligence, he lowered his immense frame and placed one massive, leathery knuckle onto the slick surface. He pressed down, testing the ground's integrity with a sensitivity that seemed impossible for a creature of his size. The earth groaned under the pressure but held. Ethan watched, his breath caught in his throat, his terror slowly being replaced by a bewildering, impossible hope. The gorilla was not acting on blind instinct. He was calculating, planning, and preparing to step into the very jaws of the disaster. What happened next would challenge the very boundary between man and beast. Snope, Block 5, Climax/Resolution. Time itself seemed to fracture, each second stretching into an eternity. Cale's movement was a study in deliberate, controlled power, a stark contrast to the chaotic collapse of the earth around him. He anchored his rear legs on solid ground and leaned his immense weight forward, transforming his body into a living bridge over the abyss. The mist of his warm breath plumed in the cold air, a fleeting cloud of life against the backdrop of impending death. Ethan, frozen in place, watched as the gorilla's knuckles, each one a gnarled knot of strength, pressed into the slick mud with impossible gentleness, testing, securing, and refusing to hasten the disaster. In Cale's mind, the roaring fear of the unstable ground was a distant echo, drowned out by the singular, overwhelming imperative to reach the small, flickering life force before it was extinguished forever. He reached the precipice where Lily clung, his massive, dark form eclipsing the gray sky behind him. He did not grab or lunge. Instead, he made a soft, guttural sound deep in his chest, a gentle, rumbling coo that was the gorilla equivalent of a reassuring whisper. Then, slowly, he extended one colossal hand, palm up, not as a tool for capture, but as an offering. For Lily, whose world had shrunk to the burning in her arms and the terror of the fall, this was a moment of impossible clarity. Through her tear-blurred vision, she saw not a wild animal, but the familiar, steady presence of her silent king. The memory of wildflowers and shared, quiet afternoons flooded her senses, a beacon of trust in a world that had turned into a nightmare. Her response was instantaneous and instinctual. With the last of her strength, she released her failing grip on the root and reached out, her small, mud-caked hand landing in the center of Cale's vast, leathery palm. The contrast was breathtaking, her fragile, pale fingers against the dark, calloused landscape of his skin. Cale felt the feather-like touch, a fragile connection that sent a wave of profound, protective instinct through his entire being. He curled his fingers with excruciating slowness, his movements precise and measured, enveloping her hand in a warm, secure grip that was powerful enough to crush rock, but was now used with the delicacy of a surgeon. For that single suspended moment, their two worlds, man and beast, were connected by a simple, trusting touch. With a fluidity that defied his immense size, Cale drew her toward him. It wasn't a pull, but a smooth, hydraulic lift, his bicep bunching like a coiled anchor rope. He scooped her small, trembling body against his broad chest, cradling her in the crook of his arm as if she weighed nothing more than a fallen leaf. For a second, he held her there, a living shield of muscle and fur between her and the gaping void. Lily, buried in the scent of rain and wild earth, felt an overwhelming sense of safety wash over her. The frantic drumming of her heart began to slow, replaced by the steady, powerful rhythm of the giant's own heartbeat against her cheek. It was the most profound silence she had ever known. Pivoting with the same unhurried grace, Cale stepped back onto the stable ground. He walked the few feet to where Ethan stood, a statue carved from disbelief and awe. The gorilla knelt, his movements still flowing with a strange reverence, and gently placed Lily on the ground before her father. Ethan's arms finally closed around his daughter, pulling her into a desperate, shuddering embrace. The first shared breath they took was a ragged, choked sob of pure, unadulterated relief that echoed in the sudden quiet of the ravine. The immediate danger had passed. The physical chasm had been bridged, but the emotional one had been shattered into a million pieces, leaving something new and incomprehensible in its place. Before turning to leave, Cale paused. He met Ethan's gaze, and in the depths of the gorilla's dark eyes, the ranger saw not animal instinct, but a clear, intelligent, and deeply empathetic consciousness. It was a look of shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the sacred event that had just transpired. Cale then glanced down at Lily, his expression softening for a fraction of a second before he rose to his full height. Without a sound, he turned and melted back into the dense, misty forest, his massive form swallowed by the shadows. The rescue was complete, but the miracle of what had just happened was only beginning to dawn on the man and his child, promising to forever change their understanding of the world. Nosh Brock 6, Epilogue/Moral. 2 weeks later, the sun bathed the Appalachian mountainside in a warm, forgiving light. The scar of the ravine was still visible, but tiny green shoots were already pushing through the raw earth, a quiet promise of healing. Ethan and Lily sat on a blanket a safe distance away, not with fear but with a shared, peaceful reverence. The frantic terror of that day had been replaced by a deep, unbreakable bond between them, a connection forged in crisis and solidified by a miracle. Lily wasn't drawing the landscape. Her sketchbook was filled with the powerful, gentle shape of her silent king, capturing the kindness in his eyes. Ethan watched her, his heart swelling with a gratitude so profound it felt like its own living entity. He no longer saw a wilderness to be managed, but a world of profound, interconnected souls that he was merely a guest in. For Lily, the memory of hanging over the abyss was no longer a nightmare. It had transformed into a defining moment, a strange and sacred event that confirmed everything she had always felt about the forest. Kale was not just an animal, he was the mountain's heart, a guardian who had answered a call that no human could hear. As she sketched, she tried to capture the feeling of safety she had felt in his arms, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek that had silenced her own fear. The trauma had not broken her spirit, it had imbued it with a quiet wisdom, deepening her connection to the wild. She now understood that the forest's language wasn't spoken in words, but in acts of profound courage and silent, unwavering protection. Ethan pulled up the sanctuary's official behavioral logs on his datapad, the cold, clinical data about Kale seeming utterly absurd now. Kilograms of food consumed, hours spent foraging, displays of dominance. None of it captured the truth. How could science measure the depth of a creature's soul or quantify an act of selfless compassion? He had spent his career observing from a distance, separated by a wall of academic objectivity. On that cliff, Kale had demolished that wall, not with a display of aggression, but with a single, gentle extension of his hand. Ethan finally understood that the most important truths of the wild were not found through a camera lens, but through an open heart. The line between man and beast had dissolved, revealing a shared landscape of fear, love, and the sacred duty to protect the vulnerable. The story of the rescue became a quiet legend at the sanctuary, a reminder that the world was far more mysterious and magical than any report could capture. It was a living testament that the greatest strength is not found in dominance, but in gentleness, and that empathy is a universal language that transcends the boundaries of species. The event forever changed the way the rangers viewed their duty, shifting it from simple conservation to a deeper, more reverent guardianship. It proved that in the heart of the wild, a connection can be forged that defies all logic, reminding us that we are all part of the same magnificent story. Do you also believe animals can teach us about love? Share your story and subscribe for more faith-restoring moments.